Welcome to Momtroversial, the podcast that dives headfirst into the beautiful chaos of motherhood and dishes on the stuff we wish we'd known and nobody tells you. I'm Alyssa, a crunchy mom all about organic living. I'm organized, opinionated, and your designated wingwoman in any parenting bar fight. Tori and Leah are preparing for international moves, Leah with a newborn, so they're taking a well-deserved break right now. And I have Rachel back with me so that we can continue the vaccine discussion. Woohoo!
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about the 2, 4, and 6 month windows. If you haven't listened to our previous vaccine episode, go back and listen to that first because we kind of established a lot of like background there, and it might be helpful. Just want to say real quick, we're not doctors. This is not medical advice. This is completely our opinion, and we don't even want you to take our opinion as gospel. We want to inspire you to look into this for yourself to make your own decision, and your own informed decision. That's really our goal here. I feel like on both sides of the discussion, everyone just wants you to like take their word for it. But really, we want you to take your word for it. So first, the first vaccine up is rotavirus. One of the first vaccines that you'll be offered at your 2-month appointment, and the 2, 4, and 6-month appointments are pretty much the same exact vaccines. So that's kind of helpful in that you're not doing separate research for every single appointment that your baby has because there's like a million of them. But the first one is the second dose of Hep B. So luckily, you've already probably made a decision on that. If you're going to continue it, if you're not going to go with it, if you're going to delay it, whatever you decide. But the second one is rotavirus. And rotavirus is a viral infection that affects the digestive system. I have never in my whole entire life heard of someone having rotavirus. Have you?
No.
Okay.
Nope.
So there's actually been quite a few rotavirus vaccines on the market and taken off the market. So that's interesting. But theoretically, it's also to make them safer. So, if we're playing devil's advocate, they're at least keeping an eye on that one. But one of the really big risks of the rotavirus vaccine is it can cause, let me see if I can say this right, intussusception, which is an intestinal blockage. And an intestinal blockage can kill you, especially if you're a teeny tiny little baby. Fun fact, when I was first looking into vaccines, my mom told me a story that my grandma had told me about her dad. My dad, I guess, had one of the rotavirus vaccines, and he did have intussusception. And my grandma said that the Lord woke her up in the middle of the night and told her exactly what was happening, and it like possibly saved his life, which is kind of cool. Kind of scary. But yeah, so rotavirus is also not necessarily a severe infection either. Like, even if you do get it, which we haven't necessarily heard of ever in the recent years, it's not necessarily a severe viral infection. And not only that, I'm getting all this from my handy dandy vaccine friendly plan. The majority of the infections are mild, and if you have good hygiene, drink clean water, and have access to healthcare, if like the worry is that they might get dehydrated and need IV fluids. That is the worry of rotavirus, which like what an easy fix, you know?
Yeah.
Do you ever
Yeah.
want your 2-month-old to get sick? No, but like all you have to do is keep an eye on them, which you should be doing with your 2-month-old anyways.
Yeah. I specifically with this one and with a couple other later vaccines, I feel like whether you agree with other vaccines for more serious illnesses or not, I feel like some of these vaccines we've created are purely out of convenience sake. It's not convenient to be sick with a baby. And like you said, like the biggest concern about this vaccine is dehydration. Like you said, okay, so if my baby gets dehydrated, take them to the hospital and they can get some IV fluids. I,
Yeah.
I just think that this, along with a couple of others that we'll talk about later, are strictly out of convenience because it's not convenient to have to take your newborn to the hospital to give them an IV fluid. But I I mean, I just don't understand. I don't, like you said, I've never heard of anybody having this. I don't understand. That doesn't mean people don't get it, but I don't understand why we have every child being vaccinated towards this. And I know that people will probably say the pro-vax community will probably say, well, you don't hear about it because kids are vaccinated. But even in unvaccinated kids, which that number is growing, you don't hear about rotavirus. And it's just not, I don't know. I think this one is a convenience vaccine for me. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and quite frankly, how many people do you think, like maybe your kids have had rotavirus and it's just presented as a stomach bug
Right. Right.
and you just move on with your life because you know what to do with a stomach bug. Yes, it sucks. Yes, it's inconvenient. But like, you know, I don't think I've ever taken my kids to ER or anything for a stomach bug just because it's never gotten
Mhm.
that bad. But if I did, like I wonder if they would even test for that, you know?
I don't, is there a test for it?
I don't know, honestly.
I don't know either. Something to note.
If there's
I'm not
gotta
sure.
be, if there's stats on it, but I don't know really.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know. We, uh, well, I guess she wasn't presenting with stomach issues. So, but when I took Annabelle shortly before COVID, my oldest Annabelle was having symptoms of really COVID-like symptoms. It was a couple months before COVID, everything hit the fan with that. But um, they tested her for flu, RSV, strep, all of the things. Rotavirus was never a thing. Never. I'm curious. I don't know. Curious to know that.
yeah, it doesn't seem it seems like from what he says, they're like talking about gastrointestinal illnesses,
Yeah,
like
maybe that's why
diarrhea
they didn't test her then.
illnesses just in
Yeah.
general. But I don't know. It's a good question. How effective is it even, you know? If you're going to, I don't know, say you're military and the military says you're going to live in, I don't know, Africa for some reason or something, and you might not be really close to a hospital, you might not always have access to clean drinking water, maybe I would consider it more, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, but as it stands in the United States, where we do have
No.
access to all of those things, yeah, I think I think that a good, maybe not a good parent because you can always miss something, but generally an attentive parent will catch the point where we say, you know what, I'm not positive, but I'm going to take you to the ER for fluids and to check you out just in case because, you know, being dehydrated
Yeah.
is, so
Yeah.
I
I
think,
mean, if you're just paying attention to your baby, you're gonna know when they're dehydrated.
yeah,
I mean, it's
yeah,
not a difficult thing to notice. So yeah, I just feel like that one's more of a convenience vaccine.
I agree. So what about polio? Polio is so interesting to me because to my knowledge, polio, the only strains of polio that exist right now, at least in the United States, are vaccine-induced resistant strains.
Imagine that.
So that's interesting. That's interesting. You know? Why are we really worried about this? Um, they also, I was reading in this book, that polio could be is kind of considered a strain of Guillain-Barré syndrome, which
Hmm.
is a side effect listed on almost every single vaccine given.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, almost like, is polio like a real thing? I don't know. Or is it just something rebranded to give medicine for?
I think it definitely was and it could still be. I don't know. I don't know enough. I don't know enough
Like,
about the disease
listen,
itself, but
yeah, again, this is our opinions. This is us spitballing and thinking about things that don't really make sense. Which is why you
think
always should do your own research. Like, we are
yes,
not experts to tell
yes,
you that.
100%. Do not take what we're saying as fact. But I definitely think it was a thing. But I don't know enough about polio. I also don't know enough about I think it's actually pronounced Guillain-Barré. I don't my ex mother-in-law actually had that.
You're probably so right about it.
No, I only know that because my ex mother-in-law had it at one point. So otherwise I would be saying it exactly the same way as you. Also, she and I could be wrong as well. So who knows? But
Wow.
I don't know
You
enough
look it
about
up. Now I
either
gotta know.
to huh?
I gotta know now. I'm looking it up.
Know enough about either. My point in saying that I don't know enough about either to say like polio, Guillain-Barré is just polio kind of,
Yeah. But it's a thought.
what evolved, but it
Yeah.
certainly could be.
Yeah. Okay, here it is. Guillain-Barré. So we were both wrong.
Guillain-Barré. We were both wrong.
Guillain-Barré. There we go. That's how you say it. So now when you
Wow.
talk to someone about it, you can sound intelligent.
We were both way off.
Anyway, yeah, I will say, Dr. Thomas, who wrote this book, he does mention that he considers the inactive polio vaccine, which is IPV, and it's actually the only polio vaccine
Mhm,
available in the US. He
mhm.
does not think it's unsafe. Um, now, is it
Well, he didn't when
effective?
he wrote the book, although he does take an completely anti-vax stance now, I
True,
believe. So
true. I think
he might
what,
have changed his mind on that one. But it is one of the safer ones.
yeah, he doesn't think it's effective. It doesn't seem. Uh,
Mm.
but he does, like, overall, he says he would consider it to be safe. Um, because it doesn't contain any mercury or aluminum, but it does contain some formaldehyde. Um, so, again, you just have
So
to
I have
make
something.
a decision.
I have a theory,
Hmm.
and depending on the uh the stance of your listener, you might get some flack for this one. But
Hmm.
I'm gonna say it
Say it.
because it's my opinion, and it's actually how I feel about um specifically polio and COVID. If you look at history from my research, what I found is that a lot of these big pandemics and epidemics that were the catalyst for these vaccines being created,
Hmm.
um, it takes a couple of years typically for people's natural immunities to these diseases to start kind of kicking in and
Yeah.
therefore reducing the number of cases that of people who have the have the disease, and then creating a space where where everybody's not sick, right? So or however not everybody, but you know what I'm saying. So like any disease, when it's new and it's introduced, people don't have immunity to it. They've got to get it. Maybe you do have a natural immunity, but you have a lot of people, like with COVID, they had to get it in some capacity and their body created this immunity.
Hmm.
Um, and so if you look at the history of these things, I wonder, hmm, I wonder when people make the claim that the polio vaccine eradicated polio, did it really? Was it the vaccine Or was it the fact that by the time the vaccine was created, polio had run its course for so long that people's bodies did what they were supposed to do and created this natural immunity? Obviously, I haven't spent a ton of time researching this. But that's kind of my opinion. That's kind of how I feel about these things. It's like I feel like a claim a claim of the polio vaccine eradicated polio is a really honestly unprovable. I don't know if that's a word. Is that a word? It's not. That claim is not you can't prove that because um, the vaccine was rolled out at the time that natural immunity would have started to kind of create a decrease in cases. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that the polio vaccine never helped anybody.
Mhm.
Again, I don't, I don't know that. I'm not going to sit and make that blanket statement. But I just have to question, and same with COVID. And I know that the COVID vaccine was rolled out a lot faster. I have my own thoughts on that, but I won't.
Yeah.
I'll keep those to myself.
Well, please
Um,
when we get to it.
maybe when we get to that one, but I, it's the same thing with that. It's like, and I don't know. I think these massive blanket statements of just polio vaccine eradicated polio and the COVID vaccine decreased your chances of COVID. Well, how do you know that? How do you know? I've had COVID 3 times and every time it was less severe. So maybe my body just already had it and now it's got an immunity, but I can't tell because I got the vaccine and there's no way of testing the two. So it's like, it's just, that's my thoughts on it. That's again, my personal opinion. Um, and I just wonder if there ever were a way to test that, which there really isn't. Um, I wonder. And I don't like those big blanket statements of this vaccine eradicated. Well, no, it didn't. And if it eradicated it, that means it should be completely disappeared, completely gone. So why are we still doing the vaccine in the US?
Well, so Dr. Thomas does go into a little bit of that history. The first polio vaccine came out in 1961, and it was the oral live virus vaccine. And then, which, according to him, was determined to do more harm than good, and it hasn't been recommended in the US since 2000. So then he goes into the fact that in the cases of polio dropped from over 21,000 cases in 1952 to about 900 in 1961. So you could argue that the vaccine did do something, but if it was later determined that that vaccine was doing more harm than good, did it do anything? And additionally, a nephrologist, Suzanne Humphreys, pointed out that American public health officials have exaggerated the efficacy of the polio vaccine by changing the definition of polio and ceasing to count most of the paralysis formerly attributed to polio.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
just like the vast majority of flu-like illnesses are not caused by the influenza virus, the majority of infectious paralysis cases are actually not caused by the polio virus, but by other infectious disease. So now the paralysis we associate with polio, called AFP for acute flaccid paralysis, can actually be caused by over a dozen lesser known virus types and other infections, including, what is it,
Guillain-Barré.
Guillain-Barré
Is that what it
syndrome?
was?
Yeah, I think the L's
I
were
don't
silent.
know.
Which he says is most likely what paralyzed Franklin Delano Roosevelt, not polio, which is kind of interesting. Um,
That is, huh.
enterobacterioencephalopathy, and cholera. And all of these
Uh-huh.
were lumped together and counted as polio until 1955, when they changed the definition, and all of a sudden the cases dropped. significantly.
So
So
I want to kind of go back to what you said about the cases dropping. I think it was from like 59 to 61, 1959 to 1961 or something like that, or dropped from like
52.
21,000 to 900.
Yeah.
What was it?
From 1952 to 1961,
Okay.
cases dropped.
1952 to 1961, but the first vaccine wasn't released until when?
1961.
Okay, so that is my point right there in and of itself. 9 years of data they have. The cases dropped, what is that? 21, but basically 20,000 by 20,000 over the course of 9 years.
Mhm.
But the only year they had this vaccine that they later said did more harm than good was that very last year. And so that's my point. That's my point exactly of like, if you just give these diseases time to run their course, our bodies do what they're made to do. And I get it, and I understand people, people don't want to get sick and people don't want to die. I know that. I hear that. I'm not saying that we should just lay down when we're sick and die. Like, that's not what I'm saying. But there are other ways that we can support our body in these situations, and in ways our body was created to fight these things. So I think that statistic you just mentioned, that kind of proves exactly what I was saying of like, we just need to give it time. And that,
What's it called? Herd immunity. That's what you're talking about, herd immunity.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah, or natural immunity, I guess. I think
Mhm.
herd immunity is, I don't know. I'd have to look up the definition of that. Herd
I
immunity
guess
can also be
herd immunity
talk.
is more so many people have gotten it and now have the immunity to it that it can't cause like a huge
Yes,
pandemic.
or I also believe it can refer to people getting vaccinated. The large majority of people being vaccinated gives herd immunity because they all are supposedly have this immunity
Makes sense.
from the vaccine. So
Yeah.
I was just, my whole point in going back to that was saying, first of all, I think this is where I was going. Obviously, this was 70 years ago, but it took them 9 years to create this vaccine.
Yeah.
9 years.
Mhm.
So,
More than 9
and
years.
when they did,
Polio existed before then.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so all of this time it took them to create this vaccine, and then it ends up being proven that it does less good than they anticipated. And yet the numbers are still going down. So I know, I know the idea of vaccines, especially when rolled out with these big epidemics or pandemics that occur. I
Yeah.
understand the idea is we want to give them so that less people die. I get that. But I also am just so, I don't know, I'm so of the belief that our bodies were made to fight these things.
Mhm.
I also 100%, I mean, if you look at the advancements in medical technology, even just over the last 20 years,
Yeah.
we are so much better equipped to fight diseases. And we're still people, so we still miss things, but we are so much better equipped to fight things off. So I don't know. I just wonder if we would just let our bodies do what they're made to do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I would just say our bodies are made to do that, but when they're properly um taken
100%.
care of and
Yep.
when you're getting the nutrients that you need to get, and our country is systematically for the past 50 years or so been intentionally taking these nutrients out of foods to save money, to make more money, to whatever. And that's part of the reason that I think people's immune systems, um, I think it creates the illusion that we do need extra help, when in reality, we just need to take care of our bodies and take care of our kids' bodies. I hear so many people say, well, it's just hard and I can't read the ingredients and I don't know and blah, 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 blah. And yeah, for sure, it's hard, but you start with one thing, you start
Yeah.
Both of us really started with the dyes. Okay, so we started with the dyes.
Yep.
And once we got comfortable with the dyes, I started, I got a little app that you literally just scan a barcode and it tells you exactly what you need to do, if that's
Yeah.
just like too hard. And yes, it is a little more expensive to eat, like it for sure is. But I would argue we don't eat out as much because of it. So that kind of makes it less expensive.
Yeah.
um,
I
but
I
yeah,
think it's also picking your battles, right? So like for me, um, when I was married, it was a little easier for me and my family to eat clean and to have clean products and have, you know, be able to spend the money because I mean, let's be honest, when you start talking about shampoo and conditioner and body wash and makeup and all of the things that we use on maybe daily basis or a weekly basis, those things are more expensive when they're clean. They typically don't last as long, so it is more expensive. When I got divorced and became a single mom and now I'm on my own income, there were some things that I had to compromise on. And so I think
yeah,
it's picking your battles and food dye for me is one of those. That's not an expensive fix. I mean, it's just not. There's so many things that are dye free nowadays. And so vaccines, that doesn't cost me anything. That's something I won't budge on. So I think, you know, picking your battles if it is a cost thing for you. I know I'm kind of getting away from vaccines, but this all kind of ties in.
it really does.
If it's a cost thing for you, just pick your battles. There are some really simple easy shifts that you can make. If it's too overwhelming, like you said, Liz, you just pick one thing at a time and you do that, and then when you're ready and you feel like you can take another one on, you do that. And I think that that is 100% the best way we can support ourselves and our bodies to then be able to, in turn, fight this stuff off and just be overall healthier. I mean, if you're overall healthier, you're also saving money. I mean, how many times have you had to take your kids to the doctor?
Yeah,
Almost never, because you're supporting their immune systems through their nutrition.
yeah,
So, okay, yeah, I might have spent an extra $200 this month on food, but guess what? I have no medical bills all year long. So it is, there are things that will come, but all of that to say, I agree with you 100% that our bodies were made to fight when they're properly taken care of, fed right, um, all the things. So
yeah.
yeah, I
And
mean,
well, you've got bad, good, better, best, right? You don't have to go from bad to best. You can
yep,
go from bad to good, and that is
yep,
better. Like, great. And so, yeah, just we don't need to totally tangent, but it is so related to be able to
100%.
take care of your body. Like, taking care of your body in relation to vaccines is the same as taking care of your body in relation to food. It's just a different topic of it, just a
Yeah,
different chapter.
yep.
But yeah, so polio, maybe useful, maybe not. Who knows? Uh, what about HIB? HIB is Haemophilus, Haemophilus influenza type B. Um, and it's primarily something that affects children 5 years old and under. So I wouldn't like put it off until your kid's 6. Like that, if you're gonna put it off to your kids, older, then just probably don't get it. Um, but yeah, and it's an influenza. It's like it can affect, let's see, the bacteria that um comprises it can infect the airway, the brain, the lungs, or the bloodstream. So you're looking at like possibly meningitis, possibly turns into pneumonia, pneumonia, um, possibly turns into sepsis, that kind of thing. Um, and again, it is not, you know, not usually that serious. There's a few Hib vaccines that are available. And he recommends if you're going to get one, get the ActHib vaccine by Sanofi. But there's like literally 5 options of it. And a lot of them are combination vaccines, and he's very anti-combination vaccines, which makes sense. If you're told to introduce one, I think with Kennedy, I was told to introduce one food at a time once a week to check for allergies. And yet we're shooting them up with like 5 vaccines at a time. And if something happens, we have no idea which one. If you
Yeah.
really do feel better about getting vaccines for your kid and that kind of thing, do it one at a time so that you know what has hurt them if something hurts them. And, because I'll be honest, a lot of the vaccine side effects are also not major side effects. There are a lot of major side effects associated with them, but Reagan, she had the dermatitis. That's not a major side effect, but it did tell me that her body wasn't tolerating it. And because that was the only one she got, that was well, we cut them all, but theoretically I could have just cut that one instead of what
Yeah.
if we got one of the combination vaccines where there was 5 in a shot, and then,
Yeah.
I would feel like I had to cut them all because I don't want to experiment on my kid when I know something is hurting her. Um, so yeah, they say um, there was a small experiment that said the Hib vaccine it caused an increase in type 1 diabetes, but overall not juvenile diabetes. Overall, it didn't. It doesn't, hurt a lot, um, or it doesn't. What's the word I'm looking for? There's not a lot of risks if you're giving just the single dose instead of a combination. If you're giving a combination, there's like a ton of aluminum that you're ingesting and or pumping in your kid's body. Uh, so yeah, it says, is it effective? Maybe, possibly. That's the issue, is that the only way you can really test if a vaccine is effective is if you have to compare vaccinated and unvaccinated children, and they won't do any studies on unvaccinated children, because from the studies that have been done by independent parties, the unvaccinated children are almost universally healthier.
It doesn't back their claims. So
Yes,
they're not gonna.
but they won't
I also
do that.
I also think even if you did, it would still be incredibly hard to get a correct I mean, if you're gonna go by scientific um standards, right? Like everything has to be the same when you're
So,
doing these
yeah,
tests and trying to get answers. And so even still, even if they would do the testing on unvaccinated, I think it still might not be accurate because you can't control every child's environment at home. You can't control everything they're eating. You can't control their exercise. I mean, there are so
yeah,
many variables that are not controllable. Um, that I mean, one could still argue that that was that's not an accurate test, or it's false, false data, whatever. So, and that right there is really my issue with all vaccine studies, is there's really no way of proving that any of these work because no two people are the same.
good
So
point.
the way my body could handle something versus the way your body could handle something, well, that's a problem in and of itself. It's different. But also, like I said, the outside variables, like they're not going to be the same. I don't know. It's hard for me to take any scientific study like that and claim it as fact. Um,
That's fair.
so even if they did do them on unvaccinated, which they never will, um, I still don't think it'd be an accurate, whatever, reading, accurate data, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. So yeah, Hib. If you get the single ActHib brand, there's no mercury, no aluminum, you know, might not hurt. You do you. You'd have to check see if your pediatrician office or your hospital even offered it, which sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I know when we were in Korea, like we had the one option that they had. Like we couldn't even really shop around because of being overseas. Um, so that's something else to consider. Like, do you want your kid to get this vaccine so badly that you'd be willing to get them another version? Or,
Mhm.
would you be willing to um, delay it because of that kind of thing? So those are all kind of things you have to think about. Um, what about this is like a huge one, I feel like. DTaP.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
DTaP is diphtheria, tetanus, and pertussis. And it's a big combination vaccine. Diphtheria, I don't believe there have been no deaths from diphtheria in children for at least 35 years, according to this 2016 book. And your chance of getting it is less than 1 in 100 million. So that's interesting.
Yes. So naturally, we want to give it to every 2-month-old that's born.
Yeah.
Cool.
Tetanus, the
We
last,
also want it. We also want it injected into pregnant mothers.
yeah. Yeah. So the pregnancy one is Tdap, and it's just the adult version. Um,
Yeah, I know it's a little different. Yeah.
yeah. It's same thing, different name. Tetanus is not communicable. You can't catch tetanus from someone else. 2 babies were reported with tetanus in 1989, and the incidence of tetanus in children under 5 in over 25 years at the time this book was written in 2016 was 0. Additionally, if you if your kid got tetanus and you got the vaccine to protect them, it actually wouldn't protect them because the vaccine takes about 2 weeks to be effective. So what you would actually need to do is get the tetanus immunoglobulin shot, which immediately protects, in which case, why do you need the tetanus vaccine? So that's a thought.
I think I also off of that.
Yeah,
Let's play into their. Let's play into the way they do it, right? As it is, you get a tetanus, you get the DTaP booster every 10 years or whatever it is as an adult. Let's play into the theory. You get that, and if let's say you get bit by a rat, you go get a tetanus shot, right? Here's my question: if I got my booster like you told me to, why do I need to go get another shot?
true. If I got the
If
vaccine
you're
in the first place, why do I have to get it boosted? I think it's every 5 years as a kid and every 10 as an
well,
adult. And
there's
then when
that.
you're pregnant as well. If I got pregnant 2 or like a year apart or 2 years apart, they would still want me to get the tetanus shot both times or the Tdap.
Well,
Like, why?
so my understanding for the Tdap when you're pregnant is you're only passing immunity. You're passing immunity, as they say, whether you agree with this or not. You're only passing immunity for whooping cough through to your baby until they are born and can then get the shot. The Tdap, or it's Tdap for adults, right? Yeah, Tdap.
Yeah, Tdap
The
for adults.
the Tdap, the only thing you're protecting your baby from in utero is whooping cough. That's my understanding. I don't think tetanus or the diphtheria pass through to the baby as they claim the whooping cough does. So I think that's the claim with that one. Correct me if I'm wrong, if you have different information.
I do not yet, but I haven't turned the page yet.
That'd be
That's
something
maybe.
to look
But yeah,
into.
which is interesting because whooping cough, again, if you're an attentive parent and your kid is having that kind of trouble, you're taking them to the hospital where nowadays they can treat it. Diphtheria, on the other hand, that could be a real issue, hospital or not. But you're not even, if what you're saying is correct, like you're not even passing that immunity on. So that would be frustrating. Whooping cough is the same as pertussis if you weren't sure. And it's a respiratory illness that causes a ton of coughing and like you're like because you can't get enough
Yeah.
Aaron, I know it's not the same, but croup and whooping cough are similar. KK had croup at 6 weeks old, and the ER would not do anything for her. I brought her in a couple times just because she was having trouble breathing. And basically, because she was 6 weeks old, she wasn't having enough trouble breathing for them to do anything about it, which I kind of appreciated because, let's not just pump my kid with things she doesn't need. And it turns out she didn't need it. But she didn't need any medications because, again, being an attentive parent, I literally held her for 3 nights straight instead of sleeping. I held her up so that she could breathe because when I laid her down, that was when she had a lot of trouble. So it's that kind of thing, maybe croup would have been a huge issue. And I think it did. I think it was caused by the air quality in Korea. And then she's had issues and she had asthma diagnosed because of the air quality in Korea and that kind of thing. So I do think it has affected her. But I also think ever since we got back to the States, she's been healing really well from it. And she hasn't had an asthma attack in over 6 months now. Yeah. So, again, if you're an attentive adult, are you really worried about the slight chance that your kid might catch this and it might be that bad to where you have to go to the ER where they can treat you?
Well, I think in this instance, right, with something that can be as serious as it that can be as serious as it can be. Um, that didn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying.
I'm tracking.
Um, you kind of have to this is one where you just kind of have to look at the pros and cons, right? And you got to weigh the statistics on both sides. Okay, what are the statistics of my child contracting this to this level? And
Mhm.
what are the statistics of her getting something from the vaccine itself? So, I think,
There are antibiotics for whooping cough.
yes.
So,
Also, I just looked it up on the CDC website and it
yeah.
says vaccine recommendations. CDC recommends the tetanus vaccination for pregnant women. And then in parentheses, it says to prevent whooping cough in newborns.
Okay.
So it doesn't
Yeah.
specifically say that diphtheria and tetanus don't pass through, but even when I had my appointments with my OBs when I was pregnant, it was always to pass through whooping cough because that's the one that they're most concerned about with newborns. So, and so that, brings me to this place of, okay, so then why do we not have an option for pregnant women to get, if they want it, to get just the pertussis vaccination? Why do we have to give a combo vaccination for 2 vaccines, completely unnecessary, to a woman who is pregnant?
Mhm.
But hey, we're not going to test. By the way, we don't test these vaccines on pregnant women because that would be unethical.
Yes, in every insert, it will tell you, because it's a huge CYA thing,
Never been.
that it has not been tested on women and children. I think usually children under 2 years old,
Yeah.
but never pregnant women
So,
for sure.
so we're not going to test it because that's unethical. But hey, you be our guinea pig. And while you're being our guinea pig, not only are you going to be the guinea pig on the one vaccine we think actually works, we're going to give you 2 more you don't need, but we don't want to create one that contains it just is it's mind boggling to me, how we can claim something is unethical, but then recommend it. I don't get it. So anyway, it does say specifically to prevent whooping cough in, newborns. Again, not saying the other 2 don't pass through, but
Doesn't
I
seem like.
don't it doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, no, for sure. And again, in the book in 2016, he does recommend the DTaP vaccine. And like you were saying before, now he recommends no vaccines.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
I
um,
I know the DTaP
I don't
vaccine very
oh, go ahead.
specifically lists SIDS as a side effect. I personally, my opinion, I believe that SIDS should more accurately be named VIDS, vaccine infant death syndrome. than SIDS. Which if you're not vaccinating your kid is like a really reassuring thing. If you are vaccinating your
Yeah.
kids, it's the opposite of that. But I do think that's just what I believe, and it's honestly given me so much peace with my babies because we don't vaccinate. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, and again, SIDS is super, super rare. But uh, when you look at the comparison of kids that are vaccinated versus unvaccinated that get SIDS, the vast majority of the kids that do die of SIDS have been fully vaccinated, which is, and at least I believe most of them, it was like specifically they had just gotten DTaP. There's a
Yes, I was
reason,
just gonna say.
there's a reason that it's listed. It's not just a one-off thing. You have to have a statistically significant amount of incidents for these things to be listed
Yeah.
because the companies don't want to list SIDS as a side effect on their product that
No.
they're making millions and billions of dollars on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I don't know. Liz, I don't know what we didn't really talk about this at the beginning, but I don't know what vaccines you guys, which of the 2-month vaccines you guys did, but we did 4 for my oldest. We did DTaP, uh, HIB, Prevnar, and polio. We did not do Hep B, and we didn't do rotavirus. I did. I followed Dr. Thomas's delayed schedule. So at 2, 4, and 6 months, she got one containing aluminum, one not containing aluminum, and got that one every 2 months, 2, 4, and 6. Then she got the other 2, one containing aluminum, one not, at 3, 5, and 7 months. That's how we did it. And DTaP is the only one that we got later on with her. I think she was about 15 or 16 months because I was pretty close to giving birth to our second. And she didn't even cry when she got vaccines when she was a baby. Like, all the nurses were like, "Oh my gosh, she doesn't." I'm like, "She doesn't care. It doesn't bother her. She doesn't cry. She never really whelped it up." Like, it just was she was so unbothered.
yeah,
I went into that appointment at 16 or 17 months, whatever she was. And I felt very uneasy. I knew I wasn't going to do um,
MMR.
MMR,
Yeah.
rubella, or chicken pox. Um, Measles, mumps, and rubella. Oh my God, MMR is rubella. Duh. I knew I wasn't doing rubella or MMR or chicken pox, but I was unsure about the DTaP.
Yeah.
Or I guess at that point, I think it would have been TDAP. I don't know. Anyway, um, I ended up doing it, and I wish I hadn't. She screamed. And for the next day, she screamed. And I remember leaving that appointment with my feeling I actually felt sick to my stomach. And I remember calling my mom and saying, I hope I didn't just mess up my kid. Um, she could not be consoled. This is my baby that was like angel baby. Like, put herself on her own sleep schedule at 7 or 8 weeks old, sleeping 10 to 12 hours a night on her own. That was not us. I mean, just easy, never cried, happy girl all the time. She screamed for almost 24 hours and I could not console her. I was breastfeeding her. That didn't help. And so it was at that point that I said to their dad, I said, I need you to do your own research and get on board because I'm not okay giving one more vaccine after this. And I truly firmly believe that there are a lot of kids who have regression after DTaP. Thankfully, Annabelle did not have a problem. There was nothing that came from it that I know of. But I just remember feeling so upset with myself, so sick to my stomach. Um, because I also knew from reading this book, I knew that this was like the worst of the worst. And
Yeah.
um I just remember being upset with myself. And so, um, all of that to say, if there's one to really, really, really ponder on, I would highly, highly recommend if you are unsure about vaccines and you are unsure about this one specifically, hold off, wait. Um, I don't know. I think that it has, like you said, SIDS is a big factor, but um just even in general, I personally know people who have had their children regress after this vaccine, and I don't know. I don't know why I don't know why we still give it.
Yeah, it is. With Reagan, we did this next one we're going to talk about, the pneumococcal, and that's when she
Mhm.
got the dermatitis rash, and well, we were going in to do the next ones or whatever. I had to make the appointment. I just told Ryan, I was like, I just don't feel good about it. I'm not an anxious person, and I was anxious about it. It didn't feel right. Like my gut said that this was not a good thing. And so
Yeah.
I think we did give her 2 or 3 doses of the pneumococcal, like through to 6 months. I think we decided to stick with that one, just to finish it, which you don't have to do, by the way. Um, but we did for whatever reason. But we didn't get any more because that just stressed me out. And with Kennedy, we didn't do anything. Same with um, how you guys kind of did Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, DTaP for sure straight up scared me. And
Yeah.
my kids are, they've not once gotten any of these diphtheria, tetanus, or pertussis. Never been
Yeah.
an issue. But yeah, last one is this Prevnar, the pneumococcal vaccine. And there's been a few different, what's the word, um, versions of the vaccine, because they kept adding strains that it protected against. So like the first one was Prevnar
Mhm.
7, and now they have Prevnar 13, which replaced Prevnar 7 in 2010. It does have 125 micrograms of aluminum, which is the lowest of all the aluminum containing vaccines, which is why we went with it first,
Mhm.
because it felt like the lowest risk. Um, so it also contains 100 micrograms of polysorbate 80. You might recognize that from your foods. Um, it's a preservative, and it is used. It's a preservative, and it can disrupt the bacteria in your gut. Um, it can cause low-grade inflammation and obesity, and it could be to blame for rising rates of bowel disease. Um, However, the FDA says it's safe. Um, so, cool. But, I would just tangenting off on that polysorbate 80 thing and how it is proven to affect the gut. How many people have gut issues these days? Goodness gracious. It's like, I
Mhm.
feel like it's the number one thing you hear about. You can't tolerate gluten. You can't tolerate this. You can't tolerate that.
Yeah.
IBS, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Maybe polysorbate 80 is one of your things that you can just say, I'm not going to buy anything with this in it.
Yeah.
And I know, like off the top of my head, pickles have it a lot, but there's also a lot of brands of pickles that don't have it. So, it's one of
Hey,
those
I
things.
was just buying pickles the other day, looking at the ingredients because
Yeah.
I don't eat pickles, but my kids love them. So I was buying some and literally I pick it up and it says polysorbate 80 and yellow food dye. And I'm like, what? Why do we need a carcinogen and yellow food dye in pickles? Just use the pickle juice. We don't need to make it more yellow. I did find one that did not have either, but I
Well, the
just
smart.
couldn't believe it. And I was so proud. I have to say, man, this was a good mom moment. I said, nope, we're not getting this. This has um uh a carcinogen in it. I think I said, or I either said carcinogen or polysorbate 80. Either way, I said, we're not getting this. And my oldest goes, oh, We are not getting that. I do not want to put that into my body. And she put it back on the shelf all on her own.
Go get 'em.
She said it was just so much more about her like taking ownership of it instead of
Yeah.
me. It was funny. Anyway, when you said pickles, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that just happened this
Hilarious.
week." I was shocked.
That's hilarious. Yeah. So there's that. Um, so he says, is it effective? Um, Infections decreased by 76% from 1998 before the vaccine to 2007. The vaccine was introduced in 2000. So it did decrease by 76%. It was really effective theoretically at reducing invasive diseases like meningitis and sepsis. Um, and had limited effectiveness reducing ear infections. He would say that the reduction in meningitis and ear infections was noticeable, but the group of bacteria is apparently really adaptable, so it changes in the face of that vaccine-stimulated immunity. So it would have to be continually changed, which to my knowledge, it has not been.
Hmm.
So
It's interesting to me that they put these claims on that it can reduce sepsis, which is not a wrong claim. But if you look at what sepsis is the body's response to an infection. And so really, it's not, I would argue, is it really keeping sepsis away or is it keeping an infection away that's causing the sepsis, like meningitis or another infection? So I just think it's
makes
interesting.
sense.
I think that's one of those ways they probably make it they kind of like buff up oh, but this is what it prevents. Well, I mean, yes, but not really because it's preventing the infection that might have caused sepsis. I think if I'm thinking through that correct, I don't know, just kind of a little thought that came into my head of like, just interesting that they're putting sepsis on there, but you notice that it's always also another infection mentioned with that, um, because sepsis is the response to an infection. So
Yeah, that's interesting.
it just makes it seem it sounds better, right? It prevents meningitis and sepsis. Oh, well, I mean, yeah, if you don't get meningitis, you're not going to get sepsis. I mean, sepsis doesn't only come from meningitis, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
I know, I got you.
it just seems like they're kind of making it sound a little better than it is. And they're not lying, they're not wrong. But I guess where I'm
They're
going is
not
like,
really accurate either.
yeah, I guess where I'm trying to go with it, what I'm trying to say is sepsis is the response to something else. So it's not like I can't have sepsis. My body, I can't have, you know, septic shock. I can't
Mhm.
without having had something else first, is I
Make
guess what I'm trying to say. So
Yeah.
sepsis can't stand alone. I don't think sepsis can stand alone. I think it's
No, that makes sense.
always a response to an infection.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, there you go. Those are the vaccines that at 2, 4, and 6 months they will try to they will recommend you give your child. The only thing I want to talk about because I feel like it goes with it, or the last thing I want to talk about is acetaminophen, Tylenol, because a lot of times they'll say your baby gets a fever, which, just so you know, is a side effect, which means that your baby's body is not tolerating it well. Or like if your baby's sore or anything like that, just give them some Tylenol. And you can play politics on Tylenol. I think we should just look at the evidence, Um, Tylenol suppresses your body's natural response to toxins and infection. And
Hmm.
why are we suppressing that? So for us, if my kids have a fever, that is their body trying to burn an infection out or get rid of something. So I'm going to
Yep.
let that ride unless
Yep.
it's, when it gets around 104, I'm like really monitoring it. And I might, if it gets around 104, or if they're acting really out of character, then I'm going to try and maybe bring it down a little with like a wet washcloth, with a lukewarm bath, with some
Yep.
of the natural remedies I have, that kind of thing. Um, and I will give Tylenol if I have to, if it just is, if nothing's happening there. But I think they talk a lot about, it'll just bring down the fever. Well, the fever's not necessarily bad. And some people are like, well, we're worried about febrile seizures. And yes, febrile seizures are so scary. But febrile seizures happen when the temperature spikes, not because the temperature is high. So
I think I think they
too
can
late
also happen
at
when the
that.
temperature drops too quickly.
Yeah.
From
So really, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
I
Um,
think.
but yeah,
I'm gonna
so
look
if
that up
you're
now.
giving Tylenol to prevent a febrile seizure, you're either giving it to actually prevent it, you would have to give Tylenol like a really low rate for something that may or may not even happen, that temperature spike. But if you're giving Tylenol because, oh my gosh, the fever's 102 and they might have a febrile seizure, that's not how it works. It's the spike,
Mhm.
or possibly the um, de-spike, unspike, whatever you want to call it.
I'm trying to look that up. I might have to like look it up after, but I thought somebody told me it could also occur from a too quick decrease in temperature, but I could be totally wrong. So don't phone me.
Well, please hold, or we will put it in the show notes. But yeah, so that's just something to think about when you're, first of all, don't give your child Tylenol out of spite. What the heck? Because some orange guy you didn't like said, don't give your child Tylenol, you're going to give your child Tylenol. That's like, that's so illogical. Just be logical about it. That's all I'm asking. If
Yeah.
you really think Tylenol is the best thing for your kid, then sure, give your kid Tylenol, whatever. But if you're giving your child Tylenol because you're pissed, like all those pregnant moms that were ODing on Tylenol, or like just chugging Tylenol just because Donald Trump told them not to, like, have a brain, think for yourself. So sorry about it, but that's like, come on. Let's
Yeah.
be
I mean, that's
logical
just,
about this. Just because we don't like someone doesn't mean that we have to do the
yeah.
opposite of everything they say. And just because we do like someone doesn't mean that we have to do everything they say either. Because, yeah, there are some legitimate times that you might need to use Tylenol. You know, I'm about to have a baby, and I did order the extra strength Tylenol for those after birth contractions. I also have a lot of natural remedies that I'm going to try first, but I'm not I'm not going to just be totally incapacitated and dread breastfeeding in those after birth contractions just because I think that Tylenol is bad for you. Because I have taken Tylenol, I don't think at all, since the last time I had after birth contractions. So it's really like I'm not taking that much Tylenol to really make a difference, in my opinion, or to make a
Yeah.
bad difference.
Listen, I, I think eh, I think you agree with me, Liz, and probably even you probably take a stronger stand against medical medicine than I do on a day to day basis. But neither of us are sitting here saying like traditional medicine is bad. That overall, general, never use it, don't try it, don't do it. Like that is not what's being said. What's being said is, first of all, educate yourself, and second of all, there's a time and place. And if you arm yourself with information and you arm yourself with knowledge, then you can make informed decisions moving forward when your child does spike 101-degree fever. Okay, but are they playing? Are they eating? Are they drinking? Are they dehydrated? If so, they probably don't need Tylenol. Just let it ride. Let their body fight it off. Like you said, your child spikes 105-degree fever and they're laying in bed looking like they're about to keel over. Okay, now we've got a problem. We probably want to give them a little bit. We want to, you know, I would probably still be trying a bath first, but I probably would have tried that before it hit 105. So, again, it's just like arm yourself with the power, with the knowledge to make decisions so that when you're in that moment, you don't panic and just automatically turn to medicine or whatever else it is.
Hmm.
Have the things you need first. Try those things first. And also realize like there is a time and place. My daughter, my 6.5-year-old daughter she broke her arm and had surgery. Guess what? We did around the clock Tylenol and Motrin for the first like day and a half because yeah, she's 6.5. She broke both bones in her arm and she was in a lot of pain. There's no way I'm going to let her not sleep and suffer
Yeah.
because of my
Amen.
beliefs in a medicine. So
Yeah.
know that there's a time and a place. We're not sitting here saying don't ever do it, but like a minor fever, no, just let it ride and know that your child is okay. I always say read the child, not the number. They will tell you likely before the number will if there needs to be some different interventions. I
Yeah.
don't know. I also want to just say I feel like this is kind of as I'm sitting here, thinking through all of this and listening to you list and kind of formulating my own thoughts. I also want to say this. When my kids were young, I had I was very, very fortunate, and I know Liz, you are as well, to be able to stay home with them. I did not have to put my children in daycare. I
Yeah.
did not have to go back to work right after. I was home with them. We did hybrid homeschool up until this last year. This was their first full year. They're 8 and 6.5, their first full year in a school. So I recognize that, especially now as a single mom, recognize how difficult it can be when you're on your own and you don't have those options, or even if you're married but your income is relied on and you have to go back to work at 6 weeks, your child's going to be in daycare or they're going to be with other kids, whatever the situation is. You may not feel good denying some of these vaccines, or you may want to turn to Tylenol right away because you just don't have the capacity to think about it. I get that. And so I want to just recognize that and say that's okay. All we're saying is educate yourself, arm yourself. Don't take this as an us saying like any of this. And I know you mentioned it at the beginning list, but I just really want to be clear. Like, this is not us saying like, if you give vaccines or give Tylenol, you are, you're not, you're not, um, you're not making the right decisions. We
Yeah.
just want you to educate yourselves. And our situations, like I said, I was fortunate to be able to be home. So I didn't have to worry about them being exposed to things in a daycare that I know a lot of moms have to worry about. So, um, just educate yourself. Give yourself the knowledge. Knowledge is power. 100% believe that. And, um, whether that's with vaccines or Tylenol or, food, like we were talking about earlier, whatever it is, um, just educate yourself ahead of time so that when you're faced with the immediate situation, you already know how you're going to respond.
Yeah. No, that's such a great point. It takes away fear to know what's going on. It takes away the uncertainty of, okay, you know what? I am going to get my kid DTaP, but I'm also very aware of the side effects. So if I start to see those side effects, I might not get them another shot. Um, or I might, talk to my doctor about other options I have to protect them. Maybe I'm not worried about diphtheria and tetanus. Maybe I wonder if I can just get a whooping cough vaccine. To be honest, I have no idea. But like those kinds of things with the
Yeah.
combination vaccines, a lot of combination vaccines, you can get the separate, um, like you can get separated out shots, like with Hib. You can get just a shot for Hib instead of it in a combination vaccine, that kind of thing. And you might have to do some pediatrician research and that kind of thing. But even if your pediatrician doesn't offer it, a lot of times like Walgreens or CVS will, and you can go in there. Um, just the same way people were getting the different brands of the COVID vaccine. It's literally the
Mhm.
same exact thing. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, just being aware so that you are able to clock those adverse reactions if they happen and that kind of thing versus going into the doctor saying, I don't know what's wrong with my kid, because I can almost guarantee you they will never say it might be the vaccine because they don't know what these FDA inserts are that list all the side effects. They either don't know or they're not educated on them, and either one
Yeah.
is not helpful to you as a parent.
Yeah.
So, yeah, just do your research, know what you want and know how you want to get that, and then use the system that was created to serve you. The system was not well, arguably the system was created to make money, but what the system should be doing is serving you, not telling you what to
Yeah.
do, not ordering you around. The system, you need to at least treat the system as if it was created to serve you. And not in a rude way, not in a Karen way, just in a, you know what, I know my kid, I know what's best for my kid. You've seen my kid for a total of 15 minutes in the last year. You really don't know my kid, or you don't know my kid or what my kid is like. You don't know if my kid is exhibiting weird symptoms that aren't in their personality because you don't know their personality. You, as the parent, are really the best equipped to, at the very least, get care for your kid, if not care for your kid. Um, so yeah, not everyone's in the same situation. You might feel like you need to get these vaccines, or feel like your kid has a higher risk because of daycare or whatever. Um, and that's fine. Just be aware, have the knowledge, make your decisions because you understand the decisions you're making, not because you're being pressured to make the decision, or
Yeah.
you just don't know and want to trust the doctor who you should be able to trust, frankly, who's telling you what to do. But unfortunately, the doctors are not necessarily mostly educated on the decisions that they're advising you to make. So that's why it's important for you to be.
Might be a problem.
Yeah. Do you have anything else?
I don't. I really don't. I think I said what I felt like I needed to say.
We said what we said and we meant what we said, maybe, probably most of the time. And if we didn't, it shouldn't be taking us for as gospel, okay? So go do
I
your
was just gonna say, just please remember, we are not preaching facts. We are just preaching opinion.
so yeah, do you have a controversial moment today, Rachel?
Gosh, as I was telling you my pickle story, I was like, this should have been my controversial moment.
That
But
could totally be your controversial moment.
um, I really was trying to rack my brain with like a funny story because I need to start writing them down because Aaliyah is just
Text them
hilarious.
to
And
me when they happen.
I need to because her moments are great, but I couldn't think of any. So I'm gonna keep it sappy. I am just super, super proud. My girls finished. I said earlier, this is their first full year at school. And they had a lot of changes last year before school, during school, um, and just so much going on personally for them, along with switching to full time and a new school. So they just finished their first year and excelled. They did so well. We love the school, we love the people. But I'm honestly just so, so proud of them and how they handled everything in their life over the last year. And, that people always say kids are resilient. And I do think kids are resilient. Um, and I've watched it firsthand in my kids. So that's my sappy
I
mom
love
moment.
it.
Just really proud of them.
Love those girls. Well, my controversial moment is actually from this recording, but I had to cut it out because my kid came out not wearing a shirt. Um, so we were recording, and Reagan is supposed to be napping. She's not supposed to come out of her room until her light turns green. She does more quiet time now. But anyways, so she comes out, and I was like, Reagan, you need to go back to your room. She goes, well, Mom, I needed water, and water is good for my body, so you need to let me get some water. We were dying. So we let her get some water, and she went back to her room, and she was great since then.
And you can't even argue with that.
You can't even argue with that. She is so my daughter on another level. It is. Like, most of the time I'm just kind of impressed and I'm like, okay, you know what? Good argument. You win.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was pretty funny. Well,
That is
thank you
great.
so much for listening to us ramble on and our crazy opinions that may hold no weight, may hold some weight, who knows. But if you would like to comment, question, complain, you can email us. You can DM us on Instagram. If you check out our link tree in the show notes, that has all of the information you would need to contact us, and we do want to hear from you. If you thought that maybe we were a little funny and had some good insights, you could rate us 5 stars. If you're pro-vax and think we're ruining the world, don't rate us 0 stars. So
Just
thanks so much.
remember, I am just a guest, so don't rate badly off of me. Just rate good.
Let's be real. If anyone's rating badly, it's rating off of me. But we appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening. And we will talk to you next time. See you later.
Bye.